and welcome to Face Check. You're joining me for the semi-finals of Call of Cthulhu LCG Nationals, held in Stoke at Guys That Game, Games and Hobbies, named by the Department of Redundancy Department, where the same guy is responsible for your PIN number that you use on your card in the ATM machine. On the left we have Steve Alcock playing Shub, Haster, Cthulhu and a Yogg deck, all of which while eating soup. And his opponent on the right is Ian Short, playing an Agency and Silver Twilight deck. Ian's coming into the semi-final undefeated, having gone 5-0 in Swiss. Of course he didn't play me, but you'll notice that I'm not in either semi-final videos, so it probably wouldn't have made a difference. Steve however went 4-1 in Swiss, with his only loss being to Ian, so we'll be looking for a different outcome this time in order to progress. Both players get a starting hand of 8 cards, and Steve takes a mulligan, obviously not happy with his, but then both players have to decide what to resource. Now both players will know a little bit about each other's decks, having played already today, so let's see if they can use that knowledge to their advantage. You'll actually see that they're making a small mistake here. It's a very common mistake. The story should be revealed before deciding on first player and which cards to resource. As I say, it's a very common mistake, and one that I pointed out to the guys that do the Cthulhu games over on Decked. I'll put a link to their channel below and you can check out some of their Cthulhu games as well. Now resourcing cards is one of the more important decisions in Cthulhu, and really cuts to the heart of deck building and sort of resource acceleration and underlies how the game plays out. For example, I kept making the mistake of not having the correct resources for loyal cards, and that would really matter, and it just drove home for me how important it is to know your deck and know what you can use for paying costs for certain cards. Also, the cards that you use for resources you can't then play, though there are a few ways of getting cards back from your domains, not least of which being the Festival, which was a lot of people's restricted card of choice in this tournament. And additionally, winning some of the story cards like Chaos Unleashed, which is arguably the best story card in the game, can also let you take your resources back into hand. So they're just about to flip over the resources here. Steve resources what looks like Palpable Unhappiness, Thunder in the East and the Sleeper Awakens. Ian resources Initiate of Hung Han. Oh, let's try that again. Initiate of Hung Hung. My words. Only recently unrestricted. B. Ramsdale Brown and Undercover Security. Ian's going first. I don't know if he won or lost the toss there. And his draw deck is just slightly off the screen at the top there. But he has just drawn his first card. So he's eyeing up his cards, deciding how to play this, this crucial opening turn. They finally get around to revealing the story cards, which are unfortunately quite difficult to see because of the glare, but they are Heirloom, A New Challenge and Village of Ash. Ian's chosen to resource a Ritual of Exclusion, which now gives him 3 Silver Twilight enabled domains, and as he's already resourced Initiate of Initiate of Huang Hung, I think it's reasonable to assume that that he has another in his hand, and he'll be using it to bounce characters as often as possible. There he just played Eldritch Nexus, oh my goodness, which provides him with another domain, and again gives him options to do multiple bounces with the Initiate once he gets going. The resource that went on there was the Foundation, which is great, as it's the arts that's on the mats that you'll see for this year's National Championship, and both players rocking them. He then also puts out San Marco Basilica, which is an agency support card that makes it day, and there's an action on it: exhaust San Marco Basilica, or pay 1 to ready an exhausted character. Then that character gains willpower until the end of the phase. But it's the readying ability is the main part of it. So pretty good card to be able to aggressively go after stories, but still have cards back for defending. Now Ian chooses to end his turn without playing any characters, and that could give Steve an early few success tokens on a story or two if he can get characters down. Now Steve's drawn up there, giving us a good view of his soup, and I'm pretty hungry. Maybe I should have something to eat before I finish this, but yeah, just eyeing up the soup, looks pretty good. Steve resources a Yogg card but hides it, and that's something that annoys me a little. Resources are open information. If you For anybody that thinks otherwise, go to the FAQ, resources and discard pile. These zones of play are considered to be public information and can be viewed freely by either player during the course of the game. Now you might think they have to ask for it, but really you should be kind of sharing that information a little bit more freely. There's over 4,000 cards in Call of Cthulhu, and it's the only way to really get an idea of your opponent's deck is seeing kind of what they're putting under there, and it's a big part of the game. So I always try if I can, to kind of show the cards. So Steve finishes his turn by playing Snowgraves. That's going to prevent Ian from playing cards from his discard. It was a lovely all-art there. Everybody who played Nationals went home with at least a dozen all-art cards, including 3 of the James Logan for the National itself. Steve passes, not putting anybody down. Again, might seem a little bit like a mistake on an open board, although he does have, open domains, or Ian had open domains, but I'd, be tempted to try and pull the tricks out as quickly as possible. Steve not playing anything. Ian's played Torch the Joint, which lets him destroy a non-agency resource, so good. It was hidden, and now I know what it was. And then he drops Undercover Security and plays Master of Myths for 1 as an action, before committing them both to different stories and hoping that Steve has no bad 1-cost events. Turns out he does have bad 1-cost events. And so he plays a copy of Palpable Unhappiness, and that will reduce Undercover Security skill to 0, meaning he won't get a success for the story or for being uncontested. So that will really slow Ian down from winning that story. He does still get 1 success for the investigation, but it's much harder to get 4 in a turn than just 2. Master of Myths there bounces back to hand as per the other part of his text, and he's a restricted card. He's such a strong jumper that it's probably part of the reason that a lot of the other jumpers got restricted in the latest FAQ. So I'm not quite sure what kind of soup that is. Let's talk about the important parts. Looks like chicken something or other. It could be minestrone. I'm dealing with important issues in this commentary. So Steve plays another sneaky resource. I'll be interested in actually watching one of my games to see if I do the same. There is one of my games on camera. I'll have a look. Perhaps I'm not as generous with showing my cards as I think. And then Steve's put down something that's outrageously shiny, but as his hand covered it there, I think it's Flooded Vault, and that will let him fetch a non-location support card later. And then he puts a conspiracy into play, Negotium Perambulans in Tenebris, aka Negotium, and it's a very popular way to slow down stories. It reads 10 success tokens are required to win this story, and characters printed cost 2 or lower cannot commit to any story other than this one. So that will hold up Ian's Undercover Security, but won't do much for the Master of Myths, which we know he's got. So there, Ian's resourced a second San Marco Basilica. He used Torch the Joint to get rid of Flooded Vault. He's probably seen what Steve would fetch with it in the last game, so knows it's worth doing. And then he manages to drop a Trial Judge, which you can do for 2 instead of 4, because San Marco Basilica makes it day. And then he finally drops the Master of Myths and plays out his whole hand, so there's no more tricks to be had there. But as both Master of Myths and the Judge are skill 3, they can ignore Negotium, and then Ian stands the Judge back up for defense using San Marco Basilica. So again, Steve's got some tricks. He plays the Cthulhu event Call to the Sea, and that means until the end of the phase, each character you can play gets minus X skill, where X is its printed skill. So again, only investigation struggles count for anything. Really slowing Ian down, where he'd be almost have won 2 stories or 3 stories at this point. He's now only got a few tokens on a couple of things. So it could be a proper grind for Ian to win a story at any point, especially only putting 1 per turn on Negotium. That's 10 turns in order to win that. You see those little Cthulhus, I think they were given out for the top 4. It's fairly standard prizes. You can actually buy those little Cthulhus, but since the UK wasn't even going to get a Cthulhu National, we're really happy that we got something going, and the prize support. We also got domain markers for when they're drained. Pretty cool, and everybody walked away with sort of at least a dozen alt art cards, just from the previous kits that Eddie had around the store. So it was a good day nonetheless. Nobody's winning a flight, unfortunately, to go to Worlds, but the tickets and accommodation are there for the winner. But it's a very small community for Call of Cthulhu in the UK, and this was sort of my first big event. I played in a regional previously, and that was actually my first sort of exposure to Call of Cthulhu proper. So Steve's played Cold Spring Glen. That's a forced response after a player places a success token on a story. Discard a top card of that player's deck. So it's definitely a mill deck we're seeing from Steve here. I don't know if it's a characterless mill deck or what he's doing. They may have a few characters in there, but it certainly looks like he's going to just try and hold up the game and mill Ian's deck out. So Ian's resourced the Knight of the Outer Void there, and that's a pretty good call from him. He knows what the card does. It bounces characters that he needs back to him, and he probably knows that it's pretty useless in this matchup. And it's really important to get your resourcing right in this game. It's just good play. Well, I mean, I don't know what he needs 3 resources for yet, but I'm assuming it's a good play. So then he's dropped Master of Myths again, and for 1, and then put them all to their appropriate stories. Now, if he gets all these tokens down here, Cold Spring Glen will mill 8 cards, which is quite a lot to be taking off the top of your deck. It's only 50 card decks, and if you ever get to the point where you can't draw and you have to, then you lose the game. But the way the stories have come out here is going to be very beneficial for Ian. A new challenge is the middle one there that he's going to win, and that's pretty much going to seal Steve's fate here. A new challenge reads: after you replace this story, take all success tokens for each player and redistribute them between the revealed stories. No more than 4 success tokens can be assigned to any story on either player's side. Now, that lets him take advantage of the successes he's earned on Negotium and put them on the newly revealed story card, the 7th Gate, and that puts him in range of winning next turn. So Steve's hugely on the back foot. He's not had much luck milling cards, and now he has to think of a way to survive more turns and get more of Ian's cards into his graveyard. So he's drawn his 2 cards there, and he's going to go into the tank. He's really got to think about what's going to save him here. The investigation icons on the agency characters are going to hurt. I mean, there's 2 more stories there with 4 successes on them. Only 1 more is needed. So his usual tricks of reducing skill aren't going to work here, because the story will be won by the time the investigation struggle is done. So he really needs something that's going to involve character removal. He's got to get things either bounced back to hand. He's got to get things just taken out of the game, shuffle back into the deck. Anything he can do here. But he has managed to pull a couple of cards that might be worth playing. So he resources another card there, Yogg-Guard, Yithian something or other, I think, and then he plays Journey to the Other Side, and that will let him look at the top 5 cards of his deck. Then because he's overpaid for it, he can take 1 into his hand, and then he can return the other 4 in any order. So he really needs to dig into his deck, find the cards that he needs to save him, and as I mentioned, skill manipulation isn't going to work so well if Ian can get down another investigation icon on a high skill character. If he manages to get that down next turn, he can clean up both stories, and with the one he's already won, that will be game over. So Steve here could be on his last legs unless he can find exactly what he wants. He's put another Journey to the Other Side at the top, so he'll draw into it next turn. A lot of the other cards aren't really going to help him. Puts him back, and then there's nothing in hand that he wants to play, so he just passes the turn. So Ian's got to think whether he can take it down this turn or not. He knows about the skill manipulation cards that Steve's got, but what he really needs is something with an investigation icon of skill 3 or higher. Now he's thinking here whether or not he needs to resource. Looks like he decides not to, and then refreshes the rest of his cards as he should have. He puts down Intelligence Agent, and that's a great counter to Negotium. Intelligence Agent reads: after you succeed at conspiracy where Intelligence Agent is committed, shuffle that conspiracy back into its owner's deck, and then boom, no more Negotium, and he can clean up really quickly from there. It also negates the Journey to the Other Side's ability, as Steve will have to shuffle, so he won't be able to get the cards that he's put back. but doesn't. There, Ian's just dropped B. Ramsdale Brown, which could mean that intelligence agent isn't even required, as both him and the judge can close it out this turn with their investigation icons. He drops Master of Myths and then puts everybody at the stories. But then Steve dejectedly drops Call to the Sea, which doesn't help him. The investigation icons have it, and Ian wins 6-0. Well, three stories now, but 6-0 over the course of the tournament. So Call of Cthulhu's only a single elimination in the cut, so that's the last we'll see of Steve, at least today. I'm hoping Eddie didn't take him around the back and shoot him, but that was a great first semi-final. Just a shame Steve's deck didn't really fire as well as we might have hoped, but we'll be back with the other semi-final very shortly.